Psalm 41 wraps up the first of the 5 major divisions in the Psalms. You can see on the right-hand side here how I point out that in Psalms 38, 39, and 40, one of the themes that we have seen is David's realization that he needs to confess his sin and to call out to God for mercy, that only God can forgive him and restore him. Even in the midst of his battles, as his enemies come against him in word and in deed, David receives the forgiveness of sins. We see that in Psalm 40, verse 1, where David says that he waited patiently for the Lord, and the Lord intervened and answered him and raised him up to newness of life. Psalm 41, we can see here, starts with a statement of principle again about those who are blessed. And look at the words that David's enemies speak against him. They say, as the psalm points out here in the second stanza, when will he die and his name perish? And then in the third stanza, a vile disease has afflicted him. He will never get up from the place where he lies. David recognizes that even as he has confessed his sin and God has forgiven him, he still needs God's mercy in order to confront or respond correctly to the enemies that have come against him. It's interesting that the highlighted portion over here on the left-hand side that I have shown in Psalm 41, that is the green highlighted portion, is a statement of scripture that Jesus himself refers to. You can see here over on the right-hand side. In the larger passage, I have shown some words spoken by Jesus in John chapter 13. Jesus refers to that highlighted portion as he instructs his disciples about how he has set for them an example that they should follow. Interestingly, David anticipates that this will happen, and Jesus himself anticipates in a greater degree. I should probably even say that he knows it will happen. So David predicts, Jesus predicts. What an interesting reflection, or what an interesting allusion that John's passage has to this psalm in reference to how David's enemies reflected in the psalm have come against him, and how Jesus recognizes or instructs the disciples that the greatest enemy will be the one who turns him in. And Jesus wants to encourage his disciples, as instructed in that passage, that this is to fulfill scripture. And do you see how Jesus ends the passage in John 13? I am telling you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe that I am who I am. An allusion to John chapter 8, an allusion to how Jesus has revealed himself to his people as the great I am, the eternal God who is above all gods. So even as David reflects in this psalm about the Messiah to come, he recognizes that this Messiah is the messenger of God himself. And as we connect this back to Psalm 2, in which David says that the Lord will install his king on his holy mountain, Jesus himself is this king, the great I am, who wanted his disciples to know that no enemy can come against him, and that he will in fact reign. As the psalm says at the very end, because of my integrity, you uphold me and set me in your presence forever. Indeed, this is the confidence that Jesus himself wanted to communicate to his disciples.